Are starting soon. Let's go live on Instagram as well and on YouTube. Let me know if you can hear me. It's the first time I do something like this, so let me know. Hey guys, sorry in advance for the weird noise in the background here. The heating system in my apartment is kind of wacky, so yeah, bear with me. It's probably gonna go out in a few minutes, but for now, we're gonna have to deal with that little bit of noise. Maybe if you're on YouTube, you might, if the noise suppression is good enough, then you might be okay and not hear it. But yeah, if you're on Instagram, it's probably like that. So, how's it going, guys? I wanted to spend about an hour with you just talking about one of my projects, one of my songs. Hey Maxime, hey, it's nice to see all you guys over here. How's it going? Say hello. And so I wanted to open up a project for you guys, one of the songs in my album, Through My Mind. I would love to do more of these. If you think that you want to see another project or find anything interesting, feel free to ask some questions. I'm going to try and multitask here between the YouTube and the Instagram and get all your questions out. Um, and yeah, let's start. And of course, I can just show you the screen like this, and you'll hear it. You'll hear it decently from the Instagram, but I feel like if you go on the YouTube, you might get a better glance at things because I'm just gonna share the full screen there, and you get the sound as well. So up to you guys. You can bounce between the two and see what works better. I don't know how the YouTube is gonna work yet because I only have I only have experience doing this on Instagram. So it's the first time on YouTube using like all these kind of things around it, OBS and all that kind of stuff. So bear with me and let's see if that works out. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about regarding this song specifically is this. I wanted to talk about how to actually play a time signature in many different ways, right? Because this is one of my favorite things to do. Take a time signature. In this case, if you know the time signature of this song, by now you should because we had a quiz about it. Write it down in the comments. I want to hear you guys. So if you remember the time signature for Through My Mind for this song. Now, I really like doing this trick. I really like taking one time signature as opposed to like, there's a lot of, I guess in the prog world or like the older prog, things like Dream Theater where they change time signature every second, right? And I feel that is a little bit hard to follow at times, and I prefer just taking one thing, sticking to it, and maybe showing it in different ways, right? So in this one, I don't know, the comments might be delayed, but in this one, the actual time signature is 15, right? And we have that first melody, that main melody that comes up in the beginning that doesn't really tell us a lot about what it's gonna be, right? So let me switch the camera here. We can hear that a little bit. So the beginning in the intro here starts with this. It's kind of wavy thing, and then once the melody becomes clear, you can hear that 15, right? Right, so that little melody here kind of divided into triplets and then or like groupings of three, and then whatever is left there, right? Now this is like the mastered version, so you're not really gonna see the notes here. I just had to have this kind of thing here so that you can actually see everything ready. Can you guys hear? Can you guys hear again? Just let me know if you guys can hear everything fine. If not, then I'll make some adjustments. So basically, at this point, you can really assume anything about this, right? You can say, okay, this can be divided in many different ways. And actually, I will show you later on how this project started. And it was so different. I think it had like some type of like a hip hop beat behind it or something wacky like that. It was like it's very different from what you hear after that, right? So this is initially something we can deal with, and we can do whatever we want with that. Okay, so, and that's the cool thing about it. It's a clean slate, and that's how I started the song too. I had this little melody, and then after that, you get these little kind of snippets of percussion, right? That don't really show a lot. But they kind of give you a certain feel. Nothing really too serious. And then the next part that I wanted to show is the part where we kind of go to like a four on the floor kind of feel, right? And here it was very important for me because I like four on the floor. Like I come from like when I was 10, I wanted to be a DJ, right? So I heard a lot of that kind of music in the past. And basically what I wanted to have is, I'm sorry YouTube people that I'm talking to this camera a lot because it's like between Instagram and you guys, you get the screen, so I'm gonna look at them for the majority of the time. So basically we get this and we can go into the bass now, which is a four on the floor, but it was important for me to keep that in 15/8, right? So this is what we get now. And what do you guys hear differently here? Like what happened here that kind of makes it smoother? How can we take something in 15/8, so like such a weird time signature, and just make it a little smoother? What happened here that made it happen? I want to hear from you guys in the comment. I'll wait just 1 second for you guys to kind of try and chip in and see what your answers are. So once again, I'm asking, okay, we're taking 15/8, we're trying to put it four on the floor. How can we make it smooth without it sounding very choppy? Because 15/8 is never really ending on the bar line, right? We have to cut it. So just waiting for a second for you guys to answer that if you can in the comments here. Yeah, so you can do anything. Just answer your comment to my question, and let's see what you guys think. I'll give it a minute and then I'll answer myself. I'll let you hear it once again, just so you can hear maybe the trick. Right, so we got an answer here, right? The constant kick. Is it Sean? I hope I'm saying your name right. If it's Sean or Sean Rikena, I hope I got it right. Let me know how you say it. But thanks, man. Absolutely, the constant kick. And not only it's the constant kick that makes things sound smoother, it's also the doubling of the time signature, right? Because now instead of having 15/8 that just chops up after 15/8, it's kind of turning into a 15/4 type of thing, right? And then when you get that type of feeling, then you can actually do more and things will sound smoother. Even if the phrase itself kind of cuts in the middle, you get two phrases. One of them starts on the beat, one of them starts on the offbeat, which is kind of cool. So you get like different perspectives too. But in the overall feel, now we're hearing 15/4 and not 15/8, right? 15/4 notes. So if we hear this now, and let's maybe, yeah. So we hear 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15. And what makes it sound even smoother than that is that the snares are coming on the 2 and 4. So that's even doubling it further away. It takes 2 full bars, yeah, 2 full 15/4 bars for it to actually end up and finish where we kind of want it to end up, right? Where it kind of everything meets together and comes back to the 1 along the way, right? So we have bar number 1 over here. And only now it really ends and kind of sums up to what we're expected to be. And if you hear the bass by itself, it's going to be pretty similar. Like the two halves are pretty similar. I did some tweaks and changes there, but it's going to be pretty similar to each other. Check it out. So let me solo the bass here 1 second. right? So especially when we go into the verse right after that, you can hear that resets right here. But we can't really notice it because when we have the kick and snare there, or just the kick even, it kind of rounds it up. And also, we're going back to the melody. Right? And then the melody of the voice is like completely not listening to the whole 15/8 kind of scenario here, just kind of flowing and having some type of almost like a 4/4 flow that ends up being cut in the end. And I feel like this is the way I do it to make it feel as natural as possible. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about this whole concept or this whole thing. And if you understand everything, just give me like a banana emoji. I love the banana emoji. It's one of my favorite. Give me a banana emoji if you understood everything. And otherwise, let me know if you have any questions about it. How to make a 15/8 groove sound smoother and make sense in a bar line musically. How to make it as musical as possible, right? In the meanwhile, I'm gonna keep going. So then the second version of the 15/8, we have the first one, that's like the 4 on the floor kind of thing, right? And then when the singing comes in, then that's exactly what we just talked about, kind of having it smooth. All right, and then so now we have this kind of lower kind of not drop. Drop is the opposite of that in electronic music, right? But we have the kind of more quiet part. It's also in 15, but it's not very felt. It's very kind of floaty, right? We have this going on now. So here it's kind of divided completely differently. It's just going by the feel, right? So it starts actually with 2 bars of, or even 4 bars of 4. And 4. Crazy too. And then now it starts to get to the 7. I'm kind of paying back. I'm kind of paying back all the 7s that I lost, right? Because 15 is basically 8 plus 7, right? So if you take a look at 15/4, it's going to be a bar of 8 and a bar of 7 after that. So I'm basically throwing all the 8s in the back end so that, okay, we're in 4/4, guys, tricking you, right? And then after that, kind of paying back all the 7s, right? So let's hear that once again, just to understand that. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, basically 3 8s and then 3 7s. So you can take this time signature and you can basically do whatever you want with it, right? You can throw half of it in the beginning and then pay back all the others in a different loop, and it will seem like you're changing the time signature, but basically we're not changing it even once in this whole song. And I really like doing these tricks to make things sound a little more musical. Then the next part, we have this type of a rise that goes into the drop, right? The drop is like the in electronic music, it's like the loud section, right? Thank you, Kiara. Oh, so good to have you here. Thanks for joining in. Thank you. So this is the part, and we have a nice kind of rise into it. Instagram people, you're not going to hear it very well, but if you're on YouTube, you're definitely going to hear that nicely. Let's see that. So this is the rise. And here it was kind of just a flow 15-4 feel. It does change every time. It does change. So right before that hit, I really wanted to just kind of actually, I wanted it to be kind of confusing. I didn't want us to be very aware of where we are in the bar. So it's just kind of going and rising until it stops. And then it comes back with a 4 on the floor again, right? And here we're introduced with something cool and new that I love using. I learned it from Indian music and from playing with Yogev a lot. Super cool concept that's called Tihai. And if you guys don't know it, what it means is just a really cool concept in Indian rhythm that you basically have a phrase and the game, right? It's kind of like almost like a game. The game is you have to play it 3 times and it has to end on the one of the next bar, on the first beat of the next bar. So this is kind of what's happening here. For the most part, we're doing that same trick that we did in the verse. We're having the all the music kind of flowing in that 4 on the floor, right? The phrasing is still in 15-8, but it kind of overflows and it has that 1 on the beat, 1 bar off the beat feeling to it, right? So that's the beginning. And this was the Tihai, the very end of it, that little bit here, you can also see it actually visually here in the drum track, right? That's a Tihai, and that's like something that I love throwing in once in a while in my music. I don't remember what the meter for that specific one. What was the count for that one? If you can recognize it, write in the comments, and I'll tell you if you got it right. Right, it's this little thing over here. I'll have to count it myself too. But try to get it and write it in the comments. I'll let you know if you got it right. All right. Maybe some of the drummers around here are gonna be quick with that. Anyways, after that, what I call drop 1.5, because it's like midway in the drop, we go towards the next version of 15 that's being introduced. Yeah, Grab, you're saying it's 7? All right, cool. I trust you. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's something in between there. All right, cool. Let's check it out later. I'll let you guys know in the story like after that. I need to transcribe my own music. Anyways, we're going to a new 15 now that I really like, and that's more of like what I call the prog part of the song, right? Because we're kind of leaving that whole 4 on the floor electronic 10-year-old wanted to be a DJ kind of part, and we're going into the more like, okay, here's the metal part. All right, so this is the part, and let's hear it for a second. Now, what are you guys? So what's the division now? Like what's happening now? I want you to hear it again. Let me know, especially for once that little bass line comes in, the prog bass line, the riff actually that comes in. We have different. It's already like more of like a real drum kit feeling, right? And we have all this kind of riff going on. So judging between the kick and the snare, I think it can be a little clearer to kind of hear. That's a headbanger. Yeah, thanks, Graham. Absolutely, that's the part where we kind of rock and roll a little bit, right? So I didn't use the guitar for this, surprisingly, but I guess I just wanted to have like an electronic sound for that. But let's try to see what's the kind of feel here. Is it 7 plus 8 right now? Is it like 3s? Is it 5s? Is it 4s? What's going on here? Try to kind of let me know in the comments if you have an assumption here. basically the drum. So basically what's happening now is I didn't get any comments, so I guess maybe you guys didn't really figure it out yet. But what's going on is we actually go into groupings of 5 notes now. So that completely changes everything, because instead of being like in this 4/4 almost feeling, we're going into groupings of 5. And how many 5 fits in a 15? 3 of them, right? We have 3 sets of 5 that we can fit in there, right? Nice. I guess the comments are coming in a little late. Grab almost, right? So if it was a 15, we have to keep it a 15 because that's like what's going on in the song, right? It's a 15/4 or 15/8 song. So it would have had to been 7 + 8, but this time it's 5, 5, and 5. And I really love that subdivision because it gives us somewhat of like an even feeling, because we're just keeping that quintuplet feeling, right? It's just like almost like 3 bars, a set of 3 bars of 5/8 every time, right? And if you notice the kick and snare here, I'll try to show it to you. Let's try to kind of zoom in onto that for a second. So this is the kick and the snare. Okay, I want you to take a look at that. Let's try to spread out. Okay, there we go. So we have. Basically, we can hear the snares kind of entering on the second set of the 5s there, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have some type of a little other kick kind of pattern going on, and the snare ending on the last 8th note of that little bar, right? So on the 4 of the second 5, right? Basically, so we're getting this feel of quintuplets here, like just a 5/8 kind of feel, right? 1, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1. And that for me is like if like the yang was the 4 and the floor, this is the yang, right? They're the ones that are kind of balancing each other. And that's how that's probably the things that I used for the majority of this song. Kara, thanks so much. Yeah, I think that it just makes a more cohesive song overall, instead of just changing things, just trying to think within that box and trying to think outside the box, in the box, is what brings me inspiration, like new ideas for these things. So I heard it when you solo the drums. Cool. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah. Once you see the drums, it really makes sense, right? Otherwise, it might be a little bit messy when you kind of just try to understand what's going on, right? But when you see the drums, it makes things way clearer. Okay, what happens after that? We kind of go back and we revert, kind of adding the first melody that we had there, half of it. It was kind of a Phrygian riff, so I couldn't add the whole thing, but I was really happy to add 1/2 of the melody later on. Yeah, so this is it. This is where it enters. Kind of entering. And the full note. And then here we go. That's like maybe the part that I like doing best, when we kind of switch back to the 4 and floor now. And then you hear it somehow in like this. I just love hearing the same riff in different perspectives through this little trick, right? This is what I probably love the most about odd meters and stuff like that. So now we're going back to the 4 and floor. And right before that, I also kind of just took all the drums out, so that we can kind of get a clear and clean perspective once again. So you hear the phrase for just one moment, you hear it by itself with no drums, and then it kicks back into the 4 and the floor. And once you get into the 4 and the floor, then it's all back to that kind of quarter note feeling again, right? I'm getting a question here by Inesh. Oh, Inesh, good to see you around, my man. Will the stream be archived by any chance? I can't watch the whole thing live, unfortunately. I will definitely do my best to do that. I think I can probably make it happen on YouTube. I hope so. If not, then I'll learn how, and I think I'm able to do it on Instagram, so you might be able to see that later. Hopefully. Yeah, I'll try to make that happen. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming in. Oh, Nishant, hello. All right, so back to our good to have so many cool people around here. Back to our project. So basically, we're going back from the 15.8. If you just joined now, we're talking about how to utilize the different versions or subdivisions in odd meter to make a different array of things without just throwing a bunch of different odd meters in here, because it's easiest to just like say, okay, I have 50 and okay, 7, okay, let's do 90 now, right? But I think using the same one and doing it in many different ways is way more satisfying to me as a composer, and maybe as a listener it just sounds more coherent. All right. Hey Adam, you're here too. Awesome. All the gang is here, all my ensemble. Good to see you guys. Thanks for chipping in. So here we go. So basically we're going back from that feeling of that 5-5-5, right? We're in 15-8, and we're going back from those quintuplet, 3 sets of quintuplet feeling back to the 4-4 feeling, and that smooth 4 on the floor kind of thing. So let's check it out. We play it just from the back a little bit for the people who just joined. And then back to go up. By the way, little insight here about the song. This whole Darbuka and Rick part is actually taken from a Hago song. If you guys know Hago, that's my prog metal fusion band that we had before Shwesmo started, and I just had to use those recordings. The percussionist there did such a great job. So these are the little percussion parts over there, just chopped and electrified, but. So yeah, the things that you can do with Ableton, absolutely crazy, right? Your imagination is the only limit. Anyways, back to our thing here. We're kind of turning back to the 4 on the floor right here, right? But the riff itself is exactly the same one, right? It's just the perspective that changes. So if you hear that main kind of bass line. So it's exactly the same one, but having the kick, different perspective. All right, cool. So I hope this was clear. Let me know if you have any questions about it. If it wasn't clear, totally fine with explaining that again. If you understood it, give me a banana emoji right now. As many bananas as you can. And I'm going to answer some questions in the meanwhile. So Grum says, stealing this. Go ahead, man. Go for it. Yeah, it's a concept. You can steal as much as you want. I think that's what I'm here for, hopefully, to kind of inspire you guys to do the same thing. Send me some stuff when you have it. I'd love to hear how you utilize this whole kind of, this whole concept. And then Inesh is saying, didn't use the sax part from the Hago album. Oh yeah, it wasn't the sax part. It was actually a trumpet solo that never made it into the album. And I said, you know what? This solo was so good that I have to use it for something. And I guess this was also, for those of you who are here since like 2020, I think this was actually the first song that I ever made in electronic music. This was actually like, yeah, it was the first piece of music that I wrote in electronic music, and I started back in 2017. I can show you in the end. I can show you the original project. I have it here, so I can show it to you guys, and you'll see it was totally like it was so messy and really like I wasn't proud of it at all, but I loved what I had there. And then I asked you guys on Instagram if I should make a song out of it. Everyone said yes, yes, you have to do it, and I made it happen. And I'm glad you guys pushed it to me because then I had to really make it happen, and I just kind of upgraded to whatever my new standards were, and I'm really happy with this one. I really connected to it emotionally too because it was the first electronic piece that I wrote. So obviously I had a lot of Hago inspiration there because we were just finishing the album recordings and all that. And yeah, the solo, that kind of weird, wacky, trombone-ish kind of solo is actually a trumpet solo that my great friend and awesome trumpet player Ron Varburg did for the album. Eventually, we chose a sax solo instead of that because we had just a lot of options. Ah, finally, that noise in the background stopped. Thank you very much. So we had that, and then I had to kind of throw it in the end of the solo, and that and the end of the song, and that was that trumpet solo that you can hear in the end. Yeah, and it's this kind of thing. And not only that, actually, the whole ride here, this whole piece, this whole part of this song is from that trumpet solo. I don't know if you even recognized it. I had to. He didn't even remember that he recorded that solo. I had to tell him like, hey, so a few years ago you recorded a solo for me, and I kind of used it for something. Want to hear it? And he was happy with it, so had no problem for me to do it. So here it is. This is the solo in the end. It's kind of whale stuff. I'm down to show you guys how. Thanks, Garrett, for sticking around. So this is just a trumpet solo, lowered down by at least an octave, I think, for the first part. So the first half is really pretty accurate to what he played there. That's where I started playing around with it. And that was actually him just like blowing air into the trumpet in the end. And I just chopped a lot of stuff. I can show you the original project. It's just missing a lot of plugins that I don't have in this specific computer. That's why I have the master version. But yeah, no, that was like he did an amazing solo and it fit right in the scale that I needed. So I just took it and used it. Rob, hello Rob. Thanks for coming in, man. And Udi, that's really cool to see you around, man. Can you talk about the synth processing sound design? It's crazy. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that you like it, the sound design and everything. Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. I'm totally done talking about the rhythm, and these are the two main rhythms that I used in this song. So sound design. Rob, is there any specific place that you want to talk about in terms of sound design with this one? I'm gonna go ahead and open up the other project so I can show you a little bit inside the sound design, but bear with me here because it might take a second. And also yeah, I think this is the one. Last stuff, yeah. So basically, when I do mixing for a song, I stem out all the little MIDI stuff, and I try to take the CPU down, the CPU load off my computer, right? So I usually just stem all the segments. I know a lot of people kind of stem things together, and I tend to not do that actually too much. I really like seeing the whole span of things. So you saw how many channels there were. There were like, I don't know, 40, 50 channels. And a lot of people just go into like drums, layers, percussions, I don't know, like synths, guitars. But I like really giving myself that freedom of having everything laid out one by one, and I can really go in and do these things slight and like in really detail instead of just doing things to the whole thing. I don't know how other people, maybe they're better at me than mixing, but this is how the way I go. In Dan Nyberg, wow, this is a good person to see around here. How's it going, man? Was my commander in the army. Hope you're doing well on. Okay, so here is the project before. So you can see the trumpet here is way more raw. So we can talk about that. Rob, please let me know if there's any specific place that you wanted me to look at. But if we take a look at the trumpet here, basically the first, oh, YouTube people, let me get out of that mode so you can see it. Okay. So there, as you can see, it's frozen here because there were a lot of plugins that, this is a computer, the only computer that could run the YouTube thing, and it doesn't have a lot of plugins yet because it's new. But one of my favorite plugins to use ever is the Manipulator. It's made by Infected Mushroom, and wow, what's the company called? I don't have I'll let you know the company for that one. They're really great Israeli guys, and they make amazing plugins. And this one specifically, the Manipulator. Let's see if I have it here in the installed in the thing. Maybe I might. Oh, I do. Okay, so maybe I can unfreeze this channel for you guys. Let's see what happens if I unfreeze it. Okay, cool. So this is the Manipulator, and basically it manipulates, right? That's what it does. It kind of gives a very cool timbre to things. It can play around with pitch, with harmonics, and gives things a very monstrous sound a lot of times. So I really love using that. I actually use that on the voice as well. We'll take a look at that. But basically for this one, I have a manipulator. I have a saturator over here, basically adding a lot of distortion and some frequency shifting here. Frequency shifter is one of my favorite things to use. This is coming in this wobbly section, so if you can hear this, this whole kind of ring mode kind of thing that's happening here, that's the frequency shifter, and you can see it over here kind of playing around. And it's all automated, right? But if I just play around with it for a second so you can hear what it does, you can see how it kind of drops and yeah, let's see how that happens. Right, so it can really make a lot of cool effects for anything that you do. From completely like ruining and robotizing it, just lightly doing it. So I tried to do it like in a smooth way, so you can see all the automation here that I did, probably with like the mouse or outer knobs to make it smooth. But most of the work with this one is just chopping and lowering the octaves on these, right? If you can see, the pitch on this one is very, very low. Okay, it's like it's minus 31 semitones. This one. Okay, so this whole monstrous kind of area. It took a trumpet, like, I don't know, let's see what the original note was there. It was just this. I mean, of course, you have some effects here, right? But the note itself is not that weird. It's just a trumpet note. Like, if I do a new channel here, let's just throw it plainly without any effects. This is just a trumpet note being stretched out too much. But when you lower the octave and you do all these things to it, then it becomes really cool. And the other effects that I have on this is a lot of frequency kind of modulating stuff. Okay, so and a lot of like EQ stuff, like filters. So I have a lot of auto filters. Check this out: 3 auto filters, one after the other. Right, so you can see them kind of play around. I think the key takeaway from this thing is like automate the hell out of everything you do. Right, there is like a, so this is decreasing the filter, right? This kind of area, and it's moving around. Then I have this one increasing a specific area of an EQ, traveling around here. I have more distortion here, more saturation, I'm driving it through a vocoder as well. So without that, kind of distorted, and with this, kind of liquefies things, I find. That. And over here, I can also, by the way, let me know if I'm going a little too fast or anything, that I'm always willing to kind of dive into things deeper. Okay, so anyways, back into this. There's one little tweak here that I'm using, which is Foreman Shifter. So if you use that, let me just unautomate that. I don't know if you can hear that on Instagram. This makes such a cool effect. Kind of liquefies things, right? And turns it like what it says. It's a Foreman Shifter. So yeah, so it just makes it way more talkative, if you will, right? I have a few questions here. So cool. So first of all, Inesh, great to have you here. Sorry to see you go, but hopefully you'll have a recording and you'll be able to stream it later. That would be awesome. And then Nishant is asking, so a frequency shifter has the same function as sweeping from 20 to 20K. No, a frequency shifter is not exactly that. It's not an EQ thing, right? A frequency shifter is it's kind of like, I don't know exactly like the mechanics behind it, but it's kind of shifting the pitch without changing the time. So it has some manipulation, some algorithm. I can look into it and let you know a little bit more about that, but it kind of changes the pitch of the thing, right? And kind of, or maybe if it is an EQ thing and it runs really fast, it basically kind of manipulates the sound wave itself, not the EQ of it, and that way it kind of lowers or just makes it higher in real time without you having to stretch a sample or something like that. It has a weird effect, but for this kind of thing, we kind of want that effect, right? So that's why I like it there. If you put a frequency shifter on just like a plain piece of like sound, you'll see exactly what it does. I can show it to you in a minute. All right, let's see what other questions. So Nishan is asking as well, when it comes to so many effects, do you have a vision when it comes to the signal chain? That's a great question. Sometimes yes, sometimes not, right? After you gain a little bit of experience with Ableton or with any DAW that you use, then you kind of have this go-to things that you start doing, right? So you know the end goal and you know where you're at, and the more experience you get, the more you know how to reach that. A lot of times I have this and I reach here, but I love it, right? Like so many times I'm trying to go for something and then I think I know what I'm doing and then it reaches something totally different. But if I love it, then happy accidents happen, and that's like the most fun thing with electronic music. You can go wacky and you can do things that are so illegal in sound world, right? Like if you learn engineering or something, it would be so illegal, and you get such cool things out of it. So that's what I think. Sometimes I do know. So nowadays, after like I know the little block, sometimes I want to go for something. Like I'm pretty sure when I did the filtering, I wanted that wavy filtering feeling, so I went for that. But I'm not sure if the vocoder was something that I just intended on having or just threw it out there to see what it does and then kind of dealt with it. Cool. I hope that answers your question. I don't know what else here in the sound design world we can kind of dive into. Let's actually take a look at something. Let's try to see the frequency shifter effect on something else, on something like very plain, just to show you what it does. By the way, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me right now and we'll dive into some more stuff. What could be a good thing to frequency shift? For example, this distorted bass. What's gonna happen? How about one of these? So choir. Just the choir piece, okay? From the middle of the song. Let's put a frequency shifter on that and let's see what it does. So Instagram people, it's a little bit on the left here, but maybe I can add a few utilities here before so you can see it as well. The tricks we do to fit all platforms, right? Okay, here you go. So this is the frequency shifter right here. Now it's 100% wet, so you're gonna hear what it does. And it does it very extremely, right? So I'm up to like 6 kilohertz here. So I think it just doubles the frequency here or something. up until it's not really, you can't really hear it. But that's why we have the fine here too, because the fine goes in very little increments. So you can see this now. Now it does it in a very nasty way, so you can't really expect it to change the pitch of what you're doing cleanly, but just use it as an effect, right? And you can also, if so, one cool thing you can do, if you put the dry wet on 50%, it's gonna start vibrating with the original sound as well, and you get some really cool effects from that, like this. Almost like a flanger kind of effect. Just super cool. From both sides, and that's kind of like playing an instrument and when it's not really in tune, so it's kind of almost for it's doing the same thing in like very close pitch, so it kind of does that vibration, and that's how it works. Cool. So that's the frequency shifter. We can have many. There's like a ring mode here, stuff like that, but really cool stuff. And I think one other use that I really like doing with a frequency shifter is going with it on drums and percussion, because that way you can really take that momentary little note. What's this, for example? Oh, that's just the percussion thing in the beginning. Let's try to do maybe this piece. Yeah, even taking a kick, for example, and putting a frequency shifter on it is gonna just make it sound very different. It sounds like a bird now. So you can really do a lot with a frequency shifter, and I love using it on some percussion because you can get a really different timbre out of these percussive sounds without doing a lot, right? Without changing the pitch too much or doing other things. Yeah, you're welcome, Nishant. And then Adam has a question here as a follow-up. Do you tend to do an EQ at the beginning or end of your signal chain? Ooh, that's a big question. It really depends. I think a lot of times I have both. Sometimes I have multiple EQs, and it depends on what's happening to the sound. So basically, if I have a vocal line, right? If I have something recorded ahead of time, and I just want it to sound better, to take some artifacts out, right? Then I want to have it straight away and just fix that, right? If it's a fixing EQ, then I would do that, like a subtracting EQ. And then, but on the other hand, if I put a compressor after it, then that would maybe raise those back up. So you got to always be thinking, like, what am I doing with this EQ? If it's a timbre thing, if it's like a sound design effect, then you can put it wherever you want and it will just affect differently. Also in Ableton, it's really easy to just shift it to, so you can just try it out, right? And do it here or there. But if I want it after a reverb, for example, because the reverb is adding a lot of high end or something, then I'll put it after. If I don't want it to affect the reverb, I'll put it before, right? So it really varies and depends on the reason I'm having an EQ there. Sometimes I put an EQ like for a vocal, right? Then I put some saturation on it or distortion, and then it brings up another annoying frequency or something. So I just put another EQ after that and take care of that frequency. So it's really fluid, I guess, to where you place it. I hope that answers your question. But in the mixing process, it's usually like when I'm just kind of dealing with final stems, it's usually something I put pretty close to the beginning just to kind of fix it a little bit. Maybe then like play around with the volume a little bit. When it's like when it comes to mixing, it's pretty much in the beginning. When it comes to sound design, it can be anywhere. Really. All right. Cool. So we're coming almost to a wrap here. I would love to hear from you guys if you have any other questions about this or anything else that we've gone to today. If it's composition, if it's sound design, if it's this song specific, anything you want to see, any last thoughts on this. Yeah, so go ahead and ask. I know it takes a little bit of a time until I get the comments from you guys. So while you say that, I will say thank you so much for attending this workshop. And it's been really fun to go back to these things. I used to do it almost like every month or every 2 weeks in the past. And you know, and I love doing it. And since I was in the middle of the semester, and a lot of people here would attest to that, there was no time for that. So I'm really glad to be back on track. I'm glad to having the YouTube thing as well. I think that's going to be a big upgrade for these workshops. You can actually hear things way better there. Oh, here's a question. So Sean is asking, how do you develop the bass sound at the beginning of the song? Are you talking about the very beginning, or like the verse part? Um, if that's what you're asking, or is it like in the drop in the prog part? And cool, Adam. Thanks for letting me know. I'm glad that makes sense. If you're talking, Sean, if you're talking about, I hope I'm saying your name right. If you're talking about the beginning, um, pre-verse area, this thing. Uh-oh, now things are now things are kind of frequency out. Let me Command Z here a bunch until we get back to the first part in the 15 and 15 you showed us. Okay, cool. So you're talking about the 4 on the floor thing. I'm assuming. This one. So basically, back when I started doing this electronic music, like I said, it was one of the first songs that I did. So I used a lot of Massive. It didn't have Serum yet, which is, I think, a really strong synth and really useful synth. But I had Serum Massive back then, so that's what I used. That's what I had. I don't have it here, unfortunately, so I can't really show what was happening there. But it's basically, I think layering was the key there to get the bass sounds, because let me turn the camera here. So basically, you have a few layers here. The first layer is like a really simple bass. Almost too simple in a way, right? Almost like a Game Boy kind of 8-bit kind of thing, right? And I like using notes as effects sometimes. So you have this little thing here that's almost like doesn't sound like anything. It's not really notes, but I just threw it in there. I like it as an effect. And then some pitch glitches here in this section. Right, like these things are like really fun to use as sounds and not necessarily notes, right? So I'm manipulating those notes into sounds. After that, we have some more layers here. So the second layer is another massive. Oh, it's actually a sampled bass that I took from like another bass that I made in the past. So you can see a sampler here. And this is just taking a bit of that and then just turning it into a bass by itself. Maybe I can unfreeze that to just show you what's going on there. Oops, I flattened that instead of freezing. There you go. Unfreeze. We're going to miss a little bit of the things here. Oh, so that's actually a cool thing. I actually made the sampler sample from different places in this sample. So you can see that if I hope the resolution is good enough to see that it's actually sampling from different areas of this long bass sample. Let me try and play the bass sample itself for a second. Let's see if I can do that. Can I please? Let's just make a long note here. Okay, so it's keeping it short because of the way it's organized here. But you can see that every time I hit a note here, it's like super random, takes it from a different place. So like every time I play the song, even when I exported it, it just did a specific thing I would never do otherwise. So I like taking long bass lines and then just like sampling from different parts of that. So that's that one. With a little bit of distortion, of course, some imaging for stereo width. And the next one is like more of a liquid layer. So same concept, but I just had like a weird kind of sound here. Kind of like an alien kind of liquid kind of layer. And same thing, right? So I had a little bit of like a liquid Robotalk kind of sample that I made. Long bass note. And then I just chopped. And instead of just like manually chopping it and placing it in different places, you just put it into MIDI through a sequencer, through a sampler, and you can really have it take from random places each time. Like this. Last one is like more of a synth, like a lead synth a little bit. With some effects, some of the notes were omitted, some of them were just reverb. Yeah, and then the last one, and that was just a serum, I guess. I think that was an edition of the 2020 edition, because I have a serum here, so probably. And then the last thing that I have here, so this is just an effect layer, and I learned that from YouTube, from some other producers that do that. So basically, when you have a bass you have so many layers, right? So first of all, it's like a cake, right? It's a layered cake, and you gotta make things kind of work together and match the EQ for each one. Be careful to not overdo it. You want to add things that are very needed and not overdone, right? So you don't want to add things that are too similar. As you can see, the different bass layers there. One is like liquid, one is distorted, one is just very simple and low. Of course, there's a sub bass there. And then the last layer here is just noises, like weird noises that I could find. What are they even called? Like, yeah, some things from like cymatics and some things from proximity. I think that was like glitch machines, some bass jams that I made in the past. So like really random stuff, and that really kind of brings the highest pitch, kind of highest frequency timbre to it. And it just comes in once in a while. Of course, the lows are completely cut, as you can see over here. And kind of layering all these things together would sound like this. So one by one. Right, and when I play these four, it's still like, not enough. It sounds a little bit artificial or like MIDI. So adding that extra top is really adding the icing on the cake, literally over there. All right, so basically doing these things is really gonna get you, and it's not an easy task, right? Like the goal here is to take this whole instrument, right, and create a lot of instrument that would eventually end up summing as one and sounding as one. And that's a big challenge. I feel like that was a big struggle of mine, especially in the beginning. And I heard a lot of producers doing it, but I was wondering, like, how do they get it? And I tried to kind of match sounds, and it doesn't sound like one. So that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges, to kind of take those, have things match with each other, make it work together, so that when you have someone else listen to it, oh, it's just a bass, right? But it has so many intricacies and layers. And I think that's a lot of the ways how electronic music can sound more lively and just sound cooler is by doing that. So hopefully I answered your question, man. Let me know, Sean. That's it. We got to wrap it up. It's been such a big pleasure having you guys on board here in Instagram and in YouTube. Hopefully I'll have the time during this next semester to do way more of this. Hopefully like once a month or something like that. I would love to keep going. And I'm really gonna work hard to have it. Hopefully we'll have the recording of this as well. I'll have to see, but definitely we'll try to have that. Thank you so much for coming out. I'd love to see you around. Let me know what you thought of it. Yeah, and just have fun, make some music. Hopefully I inspired you a little bit to make some new cool stuff, whether it's electronic music or anything else. And I'd love to hear from you. If you make anything in the vibe of this thing, then I'd love to hear from you and hear what you got. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.